Hello, family. Pastor George here, your pastor of stewardship, finance, and community engagement. Also, I have our co-host, Danette back, and also Dr. Erica Holmes. We're doing episode number 2 of The Mental Mindset to get you to the next level. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hello, family. I'm excited about this episode of SET-4-LIFE. We have Dr. Erica Holmes with us today. Yo, guys, give her a hand. Put it in the chat. I'm excited about it. You guys already know her because she's already come on previous episodes. When the pandemic first happened, she came and we talked, and there were a lot of great, valuable information. And then also with us, we have our co-host with us, Danette Wilkerson. So she's come, and as you know, she's also our real estate guru, but she's been teaching and helping in these areas. By the way, we did something called generational wealth. We're talking about how you build wealth and pass it on for a generation. But what are we going to talk about today? Then there was something we just did called generational health. And that was all physical, what you should eat, what you should intake, how you should work out. But guess what? We're going to bring it to another level. Now we're going to talk about what you should be doing in your mind and the mindset you should have in the area of health. So before I kick it over to Danette, there's also, you guys know, when you have stewardship over 4 areas of your life. First is time, 86,400 seconds in a day. The second thing that you have is a skill or a talent. And then the third is your temple. That's your body. That's what we're going to talk about. Body and your mind. And then fourth is your treasure, your finances. So we're going to be talking about that. But first of all, we're going to kick it over to Danette for this reason. You guys always say, ask George, ask these questions. So guess what? We're going to answer them. But guess what? I got my backup with me today. We got somebody that knows everything in the area of the mental, but also, you guys, get to the next level. So I want everyone to give me a high five. That's right. Hit your screen high five, but think about 5 people that you want to share this with. All right? So we're going to go ahead. Danette, go ahead.
So you know what I want to then back up a little bit. So back to dating with purpose. Do you cover money in there?
Oh, no.
No?
Because this is just dating.
Just dating, right? So the reason I asked that question is because when do you guys get into that topic, right? I'm single now. I was married, divorced now, but dating, counselor, when do you talk about this money thing? Because, you know, on my second date, I'm like, what's your FICO score? But I'm just kidding. I don't do that.
Right,
but I'm just saying, you know, people get a little timid about asking people about money. They feel like it's personal, it's private. But I wouldn't want to get married not knowing your credit and, you know, how much debt you're in, and get married not knowing your credit and, you know, how much debt you're in, and, you know, how you manage your money and all those things. So I don't know if we, you know, do people come to you for counseling because they got married and didn't know about this person's spending habits, and now we're debating over money. We see it a lot, but we're not counselors, so it's like, we can't. Sometimes we can't even get both of the folks to come sit down at the table when we're working on the budget, right? So we got 2 households. I'm about to do another question in a question: who should, you know, manage should we have joint bank accounts? All of those kind of questions. I'll let you answer in the financial space, but mentally, psychologically, when should we kind of address that, and how would you recommend people address that without causing a fire?
So I don't think it should be a first or a second date conversation. We have to know, right? I don't even know if I like you.
You won't get a third date.
Right, exactly. But I do think as a couple becomes, you know, gets serious and start talking about potential long-term plans, right, and being together long-term, that there should be several conversations about finances and how they're managing finances and you know, income and retirement, all of those things I think should come when the couple has established that they are a couple and they're thinking about moving further into the relationship into a longer term committed relationship. Those conversations are most definitely important, and that's when they should bring everything to the table and lay everything out, and there has to be that transparency. And in a lot of couples, there isn't that transparency,
Right.
and in a lot of couples, even that I see, the money is not combined together. And again, from a psychological perspective, and even talking about, seeing a lot of couples where the women make a lot of money, this is, I see that a lot in the African American households because of the, racism and discrimination, which impacts Black male achievement and, also incarceration and all of those things. And so currently, Black women are actually the most educated group in the United States.
By far.
Right, in the United States. And so it's set up that way. For the woman in African American households, we see that traditionally to make more money. So I don't talk about it in this book. But I actually have a book coming out that I'm co-writing that's coming out by the end of the year that is a premarital workbook called Before the Broom for African American couples, where we get into finances and talk about how our social cultural history has impacted the way that we make money, the disparities in our money making, and how that plays into our relationships and those kinds of things. And one of the things that I also will say is I don't like saying, should a couple, for example, have joint bank accounts?
Okay.
I don't like shoulds.
Okay.
There has to be a point where the couple says this works for us.
Yeah.
Now, having combined finances, I think, is important. If you got 50 cents and I got $1, we put that together, we got $1.50. We can buy some bread, some condiments, and some meat.
Right.
But you can't do much with your 50 cents. And with my $1, I might have some mustard and the bread. So I think putting it together, but how we do that, I think, has to be based on what works for that couple.
Right. Man, that's a marvel. She had those are very, very good points. But also, that's the part about with women that you brought up is education. When I go to graduations, it's mainly Black women that are graduating. We want to start having that. That's also the disparity that we're seeing also in the area of income. But also, I think there's a very good point that you asked as a question is about people coming together in their finances. Is that at Faithful Central that we have premarital counseling classes, and they sit down, and as part of the curriculum is to start having communication about finances. Like, originally I am one of the people on the second date. Yeah, let's get that Social Security number, run that. We want to find out first of all. We want to find out if you're still married. That's one of the things. But also another disparity that we also need to look at is this: that the older that someone is when they get married or remarried, that has actually a lot to do with certain things. If you're, some people say, hey, I don't think you should ask people financial questions, different things like that, and don't really be bothered about it. If you get married at 19, don't worry about it. You're both starting just like this, okay? But if someone's been remarried, doing certain, if you, and the older that you are, more mature that you are, you just need to sit down and have a mature conversation with somebody, and sit down and say what they're doing. I know people keeps doing it, but there's like a table, like, hey, let's just see what we have, so we see what we both have to do, and then this is the other part, we can work on it together. Because right now, I actually we did a series with the Deeply Rooted, that's the young adults here at the church. And when we did this, there were certain people about dating, believe this or not, it's true. They said, oh, I can't date her. They have $100,000 student loans. Some people's student loans are so high, but I'm saying if they're an attorney or they have a doctor, they have high student loans, but then their income is typically higher as well. So I said, what you have to understand is that it's just good to have communication about it. And then this is the best part. Have a plan. Like, we're going to do this together. Because I'm going to call it bandwidth. How well someone can do financially is a lot about how they're open to change and making sacrifices. As you know, we've done several classes in the area of real estate. And there are people that were saying, hey, we did ones in Inglewood off of, right near downtown Inglewood, I'm saying, off of La Brea near Fairview. There were homes for almost $500,000 that were 1,000 square foot and 6,000 square foot lots. Just backyards, everything like this. Let me tell you who if I was single, I was looking for. I'm just letting you know who I'm talking to right now. Look right at me. I'd be looking for somebody. I'm gonna tell you about my wife. She'd be the first person to move in there, and we just take out the whole floor and say, we're married, we're gonna live in this room, and we're gonna fix this up one room at a time. And we're gonna put our money in there, and then we're gonna build a duplex in the back of that place. And then that property worth $500,000 to about $1.5 million. That's how you talk about that while you're dating. That's who I need. You hear the word ride or die. I'm at the build or die. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about. But you see, like, that's a conversation you should be having instead of what pair of shoes somebody's trying to get or what jewelry somebody's trying to get. You know, what's your wealth building plan, and that you can talk about it as a couple. I'm gonna say one last thing about couples also, and the people that have been dating for really long periods of time and aren't getting married because someone's saying, I'm waiting to get something together, then just get it together. But the first person you need to get a relationship with is make sure you have that relationship with God and that you are working on it together.
This tickles me because I am so single, and I'm trying not to turn this into a conversation about dating and finances. So I'm gonna go on to the mental mindset.
No problem. But see, it's me search. She said it was me search. So they're
I'm
doing
like,
me search.
wait a minute, let me, and it's all about me. Okay, but no, mental mindset on success. Let's delve into that, right? Because there is a capacity. You actually used that term in what you were just talking about. There's a capacity that goes with success and being ambitious or not, and the capacity of emotions relative to finances and how people were raised. So pastor, counselor, advisor, doctor, counselor, therapist, help the people really understand before they have to go to counseling, because we're going to talk about counseling and the fact that people don't go and why in our community. But can we just delve into, either one of you can take this first, what is the capacity one needs to come to the table with to really be successful? And when I say successful, I'm not just talking about the number. I want to make $1 million or $2 million or whatever, but just how to make good decisions as it relates to success in general.
But I want to say something. I want to come right to you after this. So first of all, I'm going to come back to about psychologists, because I have a degree about what I feel about mental health was changed about 2 years ago. Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say it right now. I think every person should have a psychologist. Every last person. I think I told you I went one time with this thing where they had this fair where we went there. We had a meeting, and I sat down with a psychologist with one of my children. And they said, hey, what are the kids like at school? And then one of the kids pointed, he said, well, this person's a telltale, this person did this person did this. And he goes, what should you do about it? And he said, well, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sit back, talk to this, and then I'm gonna go help them do that. And at the end, they said, that's great. And then you know, you have to be in the room when they're with kids. Dr. Erica, true story. I raised my hand at the end of the session with one of my kids and said, excuse me, I need some psychological help. This person bothered me at work. This person, I said, I need to come back. Professional athletes, all of them have sports psychology. Not all of them, sorry. A lot of them do. You go and you get a nutritionist. Right now, one of the things I'm working on, a lot of things in area health, I have a nutritionist that I work with. There's a person I work with about physical health. Then you work with people about financial health. Then you go out and talk to, there's Chris always came here and talked about taxes. You also have a person that's in real estate. You always get a specialist. You don't think you should have a specialist for your mind? Because that's really determining where you're going to be. So you should have these, you should use all those resources. Last thing, I'm coming over to you in a moment, is this. When I was in college, one of the things they had was for athletes, they called it study table. Repeat again, they called it study table. And what they do is they gave us a tutor in topics if you needed help. So like, let's say you're getting a C and you go get a tutor and try to go up to a B. After the first semester, I was sitting in there and I found this, I was doing okay in math. I had B's, certain things, different things. And I started working with a tutor in one topic. Then I found out that she knew all the topics. And I had a tutor in college in every topic. Why? Because I was trying to go from having B's to A's. And everybody says, wow, I was getting A's too. But I was like, but you didn't, back in when I was playing sports, you had to watch videotape at night. They didn't have like an iPad and everything all edited like the way they do now. But you understand, if you want to get to the next level, you got to bring the resources. So I don't understand. I don't understand why you wouldn't, if there's a resource you want to utilize it. If you have a tool belt, I want to have the whole tool belt. I don't want to sit there with one hammer trying to use a hammer all the time and trying to hammer, and all you do when you use a hammer is you breaking glass. You need to go to the next level, start changing your mindset and utilize these resources. But I'm going to come back to success. But anyway, Dr. Holmes.
The stigma, we don't want a counseling in our
But that's
community
wrong.
for
But
some
that's,
reason.
but, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I know, but it is I'm
story to it.
asking, is that not kind of in our community, for some reason, we don't think counseling is, I would even go a little bit further, especially Christians do not feel like they should get mental health counseling because God is going to take care of it, or I'm going to pray about it, or those sorts of things. So, you know, can you enlighten us a little bit about what that is, or have you researched it, or do you just give it to us
it's a major
straight?
part
Give it to
of
us straight.
Yeah, it's a major part of what I do. And there is a stigma within the African American Black community around seeking mental health services. And actually, some of it is really valid. I mean, you know, historically, psychology was used to prove that Blacks were inferior. So there's we have been, treated unfairly in research. And so there's a stigma that comes from our experiences dealing with institutions and organizations, right? And even now, research shows that African American men are diagnosed with schizophrenia much more than any other group. The problem with that is that the prognosis, meaning whether you think someone can get better, is really poor when you're diagnosed with schizophrenia. And the medicines that are used are very toxic versus someone could have a major depression with some psychotic features where antidepressants are much, less severe medications. The side effects are less severe and the prognosis is excellent. Schizophrenia, there's poor prognosis, which impacts the treatment.
Right.
And all this. So, I mean, there are reasons.
Yeah.
Another thing.
And so they're saying they're not being diagnosed, one.
Correctly.
And then not being diagnosed correctly. And then I've noticed this also, but men, we're not going to call the police or do anything for help because we don't know if we're going to get shot or killed.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So I've been in those situations where, hey, we're going to call. I'm like, no, don't call them. They're going to come over and kill them.
Exactly. So
Right.
so there's that. And then also, for a long time, we didn't have access to these things. All we had was our faith.
Right.
And we sometimes I talk about, the church being the first social service organization.
That's right.
We went to the church for everything because we couldn't go, whether, a child was orphaned and they needed somebody to take care of it, or if we were hungry or we needed our life, because we didn't have access to governmental resources. So people all they had to rely on was their faith and the belief that God could bring them through, because we didn't have the access to those resources. And then so you have, the wrong treatment by the medical profession. We didn't historically have access to resources. And then another third factor is that we've been raised to be quote unquote strong.
Right.
You take care, you take care of, we don't have time to be depressed. Even though you are depressed, you don't have time for that. Exactly.
Right.
And it has
time for that.
And
It was a sign of weakness, or you're
Exactly.
doing that. It's sitting
Exactly.
down. It's sitting down and doing counseling. Or if you ever got it, it was always from some other environment. Oh my goodness! When you just said that, it reminded me. Neurolinguistic. There was a type of mental training they did when you were on the U.S. team. So I was in college, and I'm sitting in a room, this guy, right? And he's sitting oh my God, he's sitting like about how you're sitting away from me. He's sitting there and he goes, hey, George, I'm gonna show you how to have better performance. And I was like this, and I was a little confident back then. I wasn't there yet. I said, I already got good performance. I don't need nothing. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm good. He goes, no, I'm gonna show you how to mentally raise the level you're doing it. And I didn't really know what he was talking about. But then, because I respected the coach so much, I said, I'll do it. I sat back, he goes, I want you to relax your body. And I said, I want you to go through deep breathing. He starts going through breathing exercise with me. He goes, okay, so look, you guys tomorrow, you're playing against Cuba. He goes, you're playing against Cuba. He goes, okay, they're gonna serve the ball. What player are you gonna run first? And I started playing the game mentally in my mind. The next night, everything was in slow motion. I was so much faster. I gradually began to trust him, but it was from, If I hadn't been on the U.S., if I hadn't been on that team,
Right.
I would have never known that was a lot. Because I'm telling you right now, I'm telling you this now as a black man, when you sit in a room with a white guy and they say turn the lights off, you're like, okay. I was already I was already nervous.
Right.
But I was about 19. I was about 19, 20 years old. But I was open to learning because I learned what a chiropractor was. I'd never been to a chiropractor. And I was like, hey man, my back hurts. And I started being open to it for that reason. That's why I'm open to it, but we have to figure out how we can be open to things now instead of looking at things from the past.
Right.
Because that's an exact example of what you just said.
Exactly. And I think that that's why, as Danette mentioned, the church, I think that that's why Champion Counseling Center is so amazing,
Right.
because so many people do come to the church. And so having a professional counseling center that is connected, affiliated with, and a ministry of the church helps them to feel like they're getting counseling in a different way,
Right.
in a different setting. So it kind of opens up the door. And of course, we can't service everyone, which sadly we wish that we could, but we have a limited number, a finite number of resources, which is why we're trying to help other churches, other religious organizations, and I'm working with
A couple of community-based organizations.
trying to connect mental health services or counseling services with churches, because especially in our community, so many people respect the church. They see them as a place for
Right.
help, and they trust the church.
That's the big thing. There's a level of trust.
Exactly.
And knowing, wait, I'm going to bring up another level. And when I received it, so I received it. When I received it, I wasn't there. I didn't think there was anything wrong. Like I didn't come in there going, like I didn't think it was like I wasn't going to play good. I wasn't going to do this. Is that if you want to get better, but I'm not saying you're not good right now. But if you want to get better, use those resources. And let me tell you something that, man, I wish I had Champion Counseling Center when I was in college, because then I could have learned a biblical perspective on this as well. It's in the biblical perspective that, hey, we are okay, but we're just going to get better. And then look, we're going to learn how to do better with family.
Right.
Ooh, sex. That's sex. Okay, but then I know people woke up in the back of the room doing that. Sex. Communication. Because okay, we can all communicate, right?
Yeah.
But how do we get better at communicating with other people? Part of my meditation I do, and that you want to do is when you meditate is think about all the conversations you have with people and say, hey, how can I approach this a little bit differently? How do I approach it differently with even like now when I talk to my kids, I talk to each kid kind of differently. Even if they're twins, you still talk to them a little bit differently. Some people cry at the drop of a hat. But you see, but what am I working on? What am I trying to control? What I can control. I can go to counseling. I can learn, I can pray. And when you pray, it may not change the person, but it changes you, and then God changes the situation. So I still have two left. I have family, right? Family, and then we also have to what was the fifth one?
Parenting.
I already talked about that. But I think we had to have a whole section on working with the kids. That's how we want to have them work together. Man, did you learn something? Just type in the chat a couple of things that you learned. I learned a lot. Oh my goodness.
So, okay, Dr. Holmes, here's one question I have for you as well. You have a website that people can get resources, because I have so many other questions that I think I want to submit to your Q&A portal. But can you tell us a little bit about the resource that people can go to if they actually need counseling for all the things that we've discussed, their upbringing, finances, whatever it is? Tell us a little bit about that.
So last year, the Champion Counseling Center, using a grant from the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health, was able to design a website kind of directed towards the African American community and the Christian community, called normalizehelp.org. So normalizehelp.org, to directly address the previous question around stigma. And so the normalizehelp.org website is a repository for resources, information. We have a blog now where the first blog post was from Bishop, the second one is from mine, where we have therapists telling their stories around mental health or dealing with just issues or challenges and how they kind of came through, and providing words of wisdom and also encouragement. So individuals can go to normalizehelp.org. As I mentioned, Champion Counseling Center, we can't see everyone. Wish that we could. We're praying, God is continuing with increase. But normalizehelp.org, on our website, we can provide you with a list of resources, national resources, local resources here in California, online resources for therapy and support. We also have written down some of the answers to the questions that we talked about in part one. What's the difference between a psychologist, a psychiatrist, marriage and family therapist? So we have that information. We also have, how do you know if it's good therapy? So how do you kind of interact or ask or consult with a person that you're going to see therapy? You have a checklist to say, did this feel good? Is this a right fit? Because so many of us, because we haven't gone to therapy, we think, I got to go to the first one. Right. So we have a lot of resources. So we urge anyone who has questions and is curious about therapy, go to Normalize Help. That's HELP.org. Normalize, because we want to normalize getting help. Right. .org, and check out our website. It is, of course, always under construction. We just launched it in September, and we're adding things every 2 months. We update it and we add resources. So that is a great place for people to go to get questions answered and to find information.
Great, because I have a bunch of frequently asked questions that I can submit to you that we didn't get to cover. Yes. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Family, I pray that you are blessed. We have just done 2 episodes in this series. We had a series before where we did generational wealth, then we moved to generational health, and now we're doing mental health. And this has been a blessing. Please look at our playlist so you can see all the episodes of everything that we're doing at SET-4-LIFE. And again, we want to thank Dr. Erica Holmes. Shout her out in the chat. Shout her out in the chat. You'll see information about her book as well. And also go to drerica.com. And then guess what? Right over here, we got the co-pilot. Our co-host, Danette Wilkerson. She'll be back talking about what? We have absolutely no idea. But it'll be in the area of real estate. It may be in the area of finances. But whatever Danette's talking about, we're going to try to bring you to another level. We're going to go higher. I should join the choir. But hey, you know what? Until then, come and check us out on our next episode, where we live life by design, not by default. Let's praise the Lord.